Hi, this is Brett Knowles from PM Square Consulting. I want to give you a quick overview of all the things I learned this year at HR Tech. Now, I've been going to HR Tech for as long as it's been around, 15, 20 years. And the biggest thing we've seen is I've never seen such a huge investment in the HR technology area. And it's obvious, there's two main themes that we're seeing this year. Thing one is about AI enablement of everything. Like we've all experienced ChatGPT. What does it look like as it rolls through our area of HR? Thing two is all about how technology now is beginning to support every single aspect of creating, what some people might call modern work, what the real new normal looks like. How do we create high performing organizations in this new environment? And it looks at specifically technology around things like how do we build employee engagement in this multi-mode mode? How do we improve productivity? How is it we reduce burnout or enable well-being of employees? Their whole career development is different now that we've got this hybrid work environment. And how is it we solve this retention problem, this aging workforce, etc.? Now, I'm going to skip all the stuff that we already know about, pay, employee records, HRIS, all the stuff that is same old. There's incremental stuff year on year, but these are the two big themes that we're going to focus on today. In fact, I found it quite overwhelming, the amount of stuff that I was getting exposed to at HR Tech. And I was having a bit of a challenge to figure out how it is I could find some sort of organizing structure. And eventually I realized that, for those of you who've read Daniel Pink's Drive, he talks about what are the 5 intrinsic motivators that drive employee engagement here in North America. And intrinsic, again, just to focus on what that is, extrinsic is what your boss gives you, your pay, your external recognition. Internal is how you feel about work yourself. Daniel Pink's argument is we're all more strongly driven by internal motivators than external here in North America. And he's identified, I'm going to say, 5 intrinsic motivators. In no particular order. Thing one is people need to feel connected to purpose. Surveys say that 87% of the Great Resignation happened because individuals did not see themselves connected to purpose in that hybrid or work from home environment. Thing two is continuous learning. The second driver for employees leaving organizations is that need to get internal promotions, learning, development opportunities. Third, we need to be able to see our progress on an ongoing basis. And it was difficult before in the knowledge working economy, but it's even worse now in that hybrid environment as I don't see progress day to day. How do I know I've made progress on solving customer complaints, processing invoices, and so forth? Fourth, autonomy. We need the ability to make decisions for ourselves about how we conduct our business, so long as we live within the values and the process of the organization. And then finally, socialization. We've come to the realization that our work-life balance is more than just work-life balance. There's a huge component of social activity in the work environment, and how does technology enable that? So I'm going to use these 5 factors as kind of the organizing structure around the myriad of things that we saw at HR Tech. And of course, our overall goal is about this, high-performance organization. And the 2 trigger points are obviously employee engagement, which leads to retention and so forth, and then productivity. So let's take a look and drill into each one of these one at a time. So let's start off at the top, connecting to purpose. What does that look like? Well, obviously, step 1 of connecting to purpose is understanding what is the organization's purpose. Let's capture the strategy. And so that looks like these days OKRs, objectives and key results. Now, I want to emphasize that some of these things are recurring themes. You'll see OKRs enable almost each step along the way. So this becomes an important step to capture strategy and help people be able to see what they're doing. And then we need to give them the feedback. They need to know that they're doing the right things. Again, one of the problems with hybrid work is I don't know moment to moment, am I actually doing the things that the organization needs from me? And then the final part that we're seeing in this hybrid work environment is how do I know I'm collaborating with the right people? So in the old days, I might see them in a meeting or bump into them in the hallway, but now they're in a different time zone, they're in a different office, I might never have met them. How is it I make sure I'm collaborating with the right people? So these are areas where HR Tech shows us technologies coming in to help us enable those points. Now, I'm going to sidestep for a second and talk about AI and the AI enablement of this. And again, I'm not going to repeat stuff that you already know. I understand that most of us have played around with ChatGPT and AI and have some perceptions, but there's an extra dimension here that really is important to us in HR. And that is when I'm dealing with AI, I really have, I'm going to say 6 personas to play with. So as I'm exploring something within AI, I can ask AI just to sort of investigate something and give me ideas back. So, tell me what's happening in the economy or something like that and react on it. A second persona is an automator. So this is a case where it's a straightforward process. AI can decide what the issue is, decide what the action is, and go take that. So it might be sending an automated reply back to a known problem. Decider is where AI is going to look at the options and try to decide what we should do, but humans still have to implement. An example might be a trouble ticket. A situation's happened, AI's seen it a bunch of times before, it knows what the solution is, but it needs that personal touch to go talk to the end user and solve that problem. So that's where decider is. Advisor is, I want AI to make recommendations, but we're going to decide. And that's the most popular mode. So think of this in, for example, I want to explore my career options. I can ask AI as an advisor to, based on my background and my interests, give me some ideas about what it is I might want to do, and I'm going to go decide. So advisor. Eliminator is where we're looking for AI to give us some insights. So that example would be, hey, what career opportunities do I have? And then finally, evaluator is where I ask AI to evaluate my options. So for example, I choose to become a customer service level 2. What do you think of that? And AI is going to give me some feedback about whether that's a good option for me or not, whether it's the best option, what training I might need, what gaps I need to close, those sorts of things. So these personas play into this structure of AI enablement of HR in every single aspect. So if we go back to the model that we're using to begin with, let's move on to continuous learning. So again, one of the biggest intrinsic motivators is people need to learn in their workplace environments. So what does that look like? Well, obviously we all know about learning and onboarding. And what we do know is if you use AI and technology, your onboarding process can get cut in half. And that becomes super important these days as we're bringing on new employees and aging workforce, etc. So what would that look like? Well, I have a new employee and it could be just a decider. Based on this, these are the courses you need to take. It could be an advisor. The employee says, the employee joins us with certain competencies. We can take a look at those competencies, decide what the gaps are, and advise the employee on what sequence they might want to go through specific learning on to close those performance gaps. So again, this onboarding process combined with AI relieves the manager, the people manager, a bunch of tasks. Those are things that you used to need to do. And the dilemma was we did not get consistent input employee by employee or people manager by people manager. And this gives us a much better consistency across time and gives us that incremental organizational learning. Now, there's 3 other elements of continuous learning. Self-service career planning. So again, it's a job that people managers used to have to do or HR would do, but we can now offload some of that to HR. So now the employee can go to the AI tool and use one of these personas that you see on the left and guide them in what their career decisions might be going forward. So again, it could be, give me some ideas. It could be, here's what I'd like to do. What do you think of that idea, etc. But it offloads the responsibility from the people manager or HR, and more importantly, gives us consistent, high quality results. Self-service learning, same format. If I have some gaps I want to close, I should be able to choose how my brain best learns. Am I a visual learner and so forth? And what media do I prefer? Do I want to read it? Do I want a video, etc.? And then I should be able to go through at my own pace. Now, we still want to get visibility of that, and AI is going to advise us on what that journey looks like. And then finally, what I'm going to call a connected knowledge base. One of the things I saw is the idea of in-flow learning. What's that look like? Again, think of that new employee. They bump into a 3-letter acronym they've never seen before. There should be a hyperlink on that where I can click on that and it automatically taps into the knowledge base. It says, here's our local subject matter expert. Here's our definition. Here's a couple of pieces, thought pieces and blogs you can read on it. Maybe send you over to engage in the Yammer database and knowledge base and so forth. The idea is I'm not going to stop and learn. I'm going to learn in process as I bump into things. This is particularly important in this new hybrid work environment where I don't have someone in the next cubicle I can go ask about this question. Okay, let's move on to visible progress. Now, the issue with visible progress is we've got our day-to-day work. And in knowledge workers, that's hard to see progress, right? If I'm busy doing an assembly operation, I can see what I'm doing day to day, and I can see that product getting assembled. I can see how much waste I make and so on. But in knowledge working, that's hard to do. So we need to make that visible. Again, enter OKRs with those key results which give me feedback on both run the business, the day-to-day activities that keep the lights on, and change the business, those special projects and initiatives that move the organization forward. I also need the ability to see day-to-day progress on my career, or maybe it's month to month. But the net is that's a longer-term activity. It's invisible to the employee, and we only tend to think about it once a quarter for those quarterly performance reviews, or once a year. How do we make that more visible to the employee so that they can proactively manage things? Again, AI is a good example where a whole bunch of new job opportunities open up because of AI, like prompt engineering and so on. How do I make that available so that the employee can see that day to day and make informed decisions? Now we get on to the most complex part of this whole conversation. What does balance now look like in our careers and our jobs? I mean, here's the dilemma. We've got so many clients that through the hybrid work, they've ended up hiring a bunch of people that actually will never go to the global headquarters or multiple time zones. So we've got many clients that have teams that have people in China, they have people in Singapore at the same time, they've got people in the Middle East, they've got people in North America. There is no 9 to 5. I may see some people that are working every evening because they're working with teams over in Asia, or every morning, early in the morning, because they're dealing with teams over in the Middle East. I can't use those standard old frameworks of, what is appropriate work hours. And there are other indications of what burnout looks like. And some of that is what time am I spending in meeting? Am I setting time aside for focused learning, for focused activities? Do I have time allocated for, calming and meditation activities? And all those things are leading indicators about whether we're going to have productivity issues, burnout, and so on. So it's all about getting a better understanding. And the issue is that data is available. I can take a look at, Outlook information to see how much time you're dedicating to learning, to focused work, how much time you're spending in meetings. I can see whether you're getting assigned tasks in meetings, are they getting done, and so forth. Now, there's a whole issue here about making sure that all the data is anonymized. So again, just think of your standard, annual employee survey. You get the data, but the people manager never knows what any one particular individual answered. It's all anonymized and put into that bucket. Same thing here. We're not going to be pulling out and taking a look at anyone's calendar, but on average, how is that team performing compared to another team? And what are we seeing as footprint for what successful teams are doing? And what can we learn from that and port over to the less successful? So there's a bunch of stuff here that is incredibly interesting that is going to help us address this employee productivity issue, this employee burnout issue, but more importantly, how do we deal with the aging workforce and be able to help those people who stay with us to perform better? Now, let's move on to autonomy. Autonomy is interesting because that's sort of a choice of how you get your work done. And again, so long as you do your work within our values and our processes, it should all be good. And when it's done. And the benefit of this is I can take advantage of individual competencies, experience, and so forth. So I might choose to communicate with my people through email. Someone else might communicate more effectively through Teams. Someone else might find a better communication is through all hands meetings in person. So we need to give people the choice, leaders, on how work gets done. And as I mentioned before, when, based on this hybrid multi-time zone stuff. But we need to make sure that people are working within those rules, and that as rules need to get enhanced and modified, they move forward. Perhaps the biggest drain on autonomy I've learned is meetings, right? We get called into meetings and you really don't have a choice whether you attend or not. And you'll find you just suddenly lost 3 hours of your day and you've not made any progress on your assigned tasks. So how is it we can manage meetings better. And what does that look like? It looks like preparing for them better, executing them better, doing better follow-up. But more importantly, managing the chemistry inside the meetings to make sure that the right people are participating to the right extent and that we're taking clear action items and moving things forward. One of the biggest improvements I've seen in this space this year is using AI to take notes of your meetings. What does that look like? It now looks like, and again, if I look at Teams, Copilot can sit in there and take notes. Now I don't have to sit through the meeting. I can just take a look at the Copilot summary, or even the summarized video clips where it will compress a 3-hour meeting into a 2-minute video. And obviously the linked action items. So now I don't need to attend all those meetings. I can choose which meetings I need to attend for needs for specific participation or bigger gaps to close and so forth, and use AI to close those other things. And so that allows me again to retain some control over my day-to-day activities. Then the third element of autonomy these days is about how your team is performing. And this becomes super important because these days little work is ever done individually. It's always done as part of a team. And so what does that look like? It looks like, let's take a look at those teams to see, are they collaborating correctly? Are the team mechanics internally working? Are individuals inside the team contributing where they should be in the right format? And are we collaborating with the right other teams and individuals external to the team that we're in? And finally, are we helping each other? Like any good team, we should be helping each other with that progress. And again, we should be able to take a look at these things and give us feedback. Finally, socialization. So socialization is this, like we all know that an element of business is just communicating to each other and what that dynamic looks like and how we work with each other. But what we've learned in this hybrid work environment is there is an element of our social lives which are also a component of work. And we've noticed that without the in-person meetings, some of that is not happening as elegantly as we would like. And so now we need the ability to structure that inside of our meetings and set up environments and technology that allow that to happen. Now, if you're like me, at this point, you're pretty much overwhelmed. There's so much stuff here. You go, how could any people manager get their head on this? Well, you can't. Now, the issue, though, is all this complexity already exists. We're merely seeing HR technology now that makes that invisible stuff visible. So now we can manage it. But it's overwhelming for the people manager. And again, that's where where AI comes in to help the HR teams be better. And what this does is it makes your work as a people manager and for the whole organization faster, better, and easier. What's that look like? Well, if Copilot or your AI is taking a look at all of this ecosystem, it's going to come back to a people manager perhaps one day on your daily, when you check on it. I was going to say, hey, go give this team a pat on the back. They, did incredible activity last week. They're very productive. They're getting, their milestones accomplished slightly ahead of time. Go give them a pat on the back. Or this other team seems to be lagging a bit, and there's some early indicators. There's behaviors going on that might lead to burnout. Maybe you better go check in with them and see what you can do to help them out. Or even think of that quarterly performance review or annual performance review. AI is going to take a look at this and say, here are the topics that you need to talk about around this person's development. Here's what you need to talk about in terms of their career planning and so forth. And what it allows you to do now is have a very personalized conversation that's informed based on the facts and data that's going on without stepping over any of those, privacy and data issues. But it allows us as people managers to be far more effective. So that's kind of a summary of what we're now seeing in the HR area. And obviously things are moving quickly, but it's an exciting era that we're in as all this stuff is suddenly becoming available to us. Now, I want to tell you the same story in a slightly different way because, everyone's brain sort of absorbs information in a different way. So here's a different way of telling the story. When we survey leaders about what they want from AI, they want things like increased employee productivity, helping employees with repetitive tasks, increase employee well-being, eliminating those low-value activities that we're wasting our time on, help leverage our human capabilities so that we get a better reach. How do I increase the velocity of work? How do I help individuals get that institutional knowledge that I used to get meeting people to people, but very ineffectively? How do I make sure people are aligned to the goals, coordinating hybrid work, and increasing inclusivity? These are things that we're looking for from AI and frankly looking for as people managers. And there's technology that enables them. So what's that look like? Well, we've been talking about AI. And so I'll use the suite of Microsoft products as a backbone since most of us are familiar with those. So the AI tool is Copilot. And Copilot checks all the boxes. It allows us to achieve those desired outcomes from AI across the board. But there's also specialized tools. So I kept on pointing out where OKRs comes in. So, OKRs, or in this case, Viva Goals, check some of the boxes. So if I want to include productivity, people need to be linked to strategy and know where their objectives are and what key results they need to push before. That helps people make sure that they're engaged and that they're working on the right things and improve their well-being. It helps them decide what they can stop doing, eliminate low-value activities, etc. So as I choose which of these I'm trying to address in the organization, I can choose which tools I would use. So other tools that we saw are things like Insights. So Insights takes a look at day-to-day transactional information, your Outlook calendar and so forth, and gives you insights about what teams are pushing towards burnout, what things are being productive, how well meetings are getting run, those sorts of things. If I take a look at external sources of data like surveys that come from Glint or Pulse surveys that come from Pulse, again, they check off other boxes. If I look at how it is we communicate across the organization, those are modules like Engage and Amplify. They check other boxes. And then finally, how is it we keep building that knowledge base and learning through things like learning in topics. So again, the way that this way of looking at it approaches is if you take a look at where your organization's need is, I can decide which steps I need to take using these new HR technologies to underpin that and again, make it faster, better, easier. So in summary, the 5 things that I learned at HR Tech this year are 1, get on the bandwagon now. There's a lot of stuff happening and there's no benefit in waiting. It's not like we're going to be doing it completely different in the future. In fact, that what we see is the longer you wait, the bigger the gap is. So for example, if you don't begin using things like AI right now, it's going to be a bigger gap 6 months from now. Yes, AI is going to change over the next 6 months, but it's only doing the more of what it currently does, better and faster. So get on the bandwagon now. Thing 2 I learned is take small steps. What's that expression? You can't boil the ocean at once. You have to do it 1 cup at a time. So you don't need to do it all at once. You just take small steps. And our observation is, again, OKRs are the first right move in most instances. In most instances, individuals don't know what they should be doing. They don't know how the strategy cascades down to them. And without that, it doesn't make any sense to do analysis around the work I'm doing in Insights or doing employee surveys, because I don't know what to survey for. It needs to be underpinned by that strategy. So take small steps. And it becomes a game of chess. If you go back to that previous slide, depending on what your needs are, you can decide what is the second step you make. Again, like a game of chess. Do I move the pawn first or the rook? This allows us to sequence benefits at the right pace. Third, pay attention to access to information. Now, the AI stuff is a bit scary because we're concerned about where that information goes. So, thing 1 is don't use open systems. So things like ChatGPT is putting whatever you put into it available basically to the internet. It becomes part of the learning platform, other people can access it. So you can't go in there and put in your performance data, your career plans, and so forth. And so you need tools like Microsoft's Copilot that keeps your proprietary data on your side of the firewall and doesn't release it to the learning environment, but at the same time accesses the broader internet. And you also have to pay attention to internal access rights. So the simple example there is, let's say someone asks AI about, corporate cost cutting and salaries. That person might not have access to that sort of information. A senior person can ask the same question and they should get the answer from AI and from the system, but that junior person should not. So, in the single sign-on environment, that access to information needs to travel along, especially with the work that we're doing in HR. So pay attention to the access to information stuff. It shouldn't be a big step. That's what IT does, and this is merely the enablement of that. Fourth, learn as you go. So this is not solvable in a boardroom. You can't debate your way to this answer. It's like learning to ride a bike. You got to hop on it and start doing it. So the issue is the organization doesn't know what it doesn't know. So it's not like learning accounting where you know that I don't know to do accounting. This is the course I need to take. With all this stuff, uncharted territories, and there is no one way you need to do it. So as you go forward at each step, underpin that step and take the next step. And so you don't need to waste your time to get certified in something to begin with. Go do it, and later on you figure out what certifications you now need to move towards. And then finally, just do it. That none of this is scary. All this is doing is taking what we currently do to the next level. And this has all been done before. If you think of even the advent of computers in business, at one point in time we did every single thing manually and everything is written down, and we managed to move to computers without the world falling apart. This is merely another leap forward where we're now having not the agricultural era or the industrial era, we're now having the cognitive era. And the only way to move in it is to just do it, and there's no barrier to not take that step. So I hope this has been a useful oversight for you and has saved you 3 days of HR tech. Happy to answer any of these questions in more detail that you might have, but hopefully this has given you a good running start on what's happening in the technology area supporting HR.